Welcome back, everyone. How many times have we heard about the miraculous Quran? This claim takes various forms, but what I want to focus on in this video is the argument from Muslim apologists that the Quran itself, by reading it in Arabic or hearing it recited, testifies to its own divine origin. Here are some examples.
The Quran has been looked at as the ultimate miracle by Muslim scholars from the very beginning. Some of those angles, like the most common angle, is the most difficult to explain in English. Why? Because the idea is that the Quran is miraculous in terms of its language. Something in the way Allah speaks, something in the way that He communicates His message is so profound and incredible that it can't even be translated.
The quantity and the quality of this miracle is so magnificent that all of the other miracles are trivial compared to it. So the miracle that is the mother of all miracles, the miracle that eclipses all other miracles, the miracle that is the definitive miracle is the miracle of the Quran. Therefore, there is no question that the Quran is the ultimate miracle. Let me just mention very quickly 6 or 7 things that make the Quran miraculous. The most obvious of them and the most self-evident and the one that the Quraysh understood immediately was the language and the style, the rhetoric and the eloquence of the Quran. Go look at the 7 poems, the Mu'allaqat al-Sab'a. Go look at pre-Islamic poetry. Go look at all types of what is called nathr and rhythm and rhyme of pre-Islam and post-Islam. The genre of the Quran, the style of the Quran, the eloquence of the Quran is something that no human has even come close to. It truly is timeless, and that is why when the greatest poets of Quraysh heard it, when the greatest poets of Arabia heard it, they didn't know what to do. They were mesmerized. It is mentioned in the Quran, multiple instances of the seerah. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions Al-Walid, for example, Ibn Uqba, what he did when he heard the Quran. Abu Jahl, the enemy of Islam, at night he would go stand outside the house of the Prophet ﷺ to listen to the Quran being recited.
The audience's response to the miraculous Quran is recorded in the Quran, he says. When they heard it, they didn't know what to do.
When the greatest poets of Quraysh heard it, when the greatest poets of Arabia heard it, they didn't know what to do. They were mesmerized.
It's interesting that he says the amazed response of the people is mentioned in the Quran and Sirah, but quickly launches into examples of the latter. Let's explore why that might be the case, starting with constructing an irrefutable argument using Muslim logic. First, the Quran's recitation compels people to believe in its divine origin. Second, let's also posit that the recitation could not possibly be any better than when it was uttered from the lips of the Prophet of Islam himself. Third, let's assume that the Quran is accurate in the events it reports. It follows from this that nowhere in the history of Islam should the recitation of the Quran be more compelling than for its original audience, Muhammad's contemporaries. The Quran should therefore easily validate these claims by Muslim apologists. So let's turn to the Quran and see what it says about the response of its original audience. There are lots of verses here. I'll abbreviate and summarize, but feel free to look them up yourself also. There are some of them who listen to you and disbelieve and say, "This is nothing but old tales." When our signs are recited to them, they say, "We have already heard this. This is nothing but old tales." If we wished, we could indeed say something like this: "This is nothing but old tales." There are some who heard the Prophet and say, "He is all ears." They make a good point. When it is said to them, "What has your Lord sent down?" they say, "Old tales. We have been promised this before, we and our fathers. This is nothing but old tales." Those who disbelieve say, "Certainly we have been promised this before. This is nothing but old tales." But the one who says to his parents, "Enough of both of you, do you promise me that I shall be brought forth when generations have already passed away before me?" He says, "This is nothing but old tales." When our signs are recited to him, he says, "Old tales." And once again, when our signs are recited to him, he says, "Old tales." Additionally, we find that the Quran's reciter was thought to have a human teacher, not divine. Certainly we know that they say only a human being teaches him. Those who disbelieve say this is nothing but a lie. He has forged it, and other people have helped him with it. The hearers of the Quran are therefore explicitly contradicting the notion that the God of the Quran reveals what humans do not know. As Surah 96 says, "He who teaches by the pen teaches the humans what he does not know." On the contrary, the people hearing the Quran being recited are claiming that they have prior knowledge of the supposed divine revelations. The Quran also affirms that many people will not believe even after hearing its recitation. Rather, painful punishment will be required. It is indeed descending down from the Lord of the worlds in a clear Arabic language. They will not believe in it until they see the painful punishment. So in the human realm, people are definitely unimpressed with the Quran and its messenger. Over and over, the Quran's audience is surprised at the mere plain warner with a very familiar message resembling ancient legends. And of course, in typical Quran fashion, every messenger is the same, and the people react the same, with an almost suspicious, robot-like predictability. What prevented the people from believing when the guidance came to them, except that they said, has God raised up a human being as a messenger? And you can compare with many other verses I have listed there for something similar. The Quran itself, therefore, does not claim to amaze people who hear its recitation. What the Quran relies on very frequently for its credibility is that the Quran claims to agree with and confirm the scriptures that came before it. I could cite verses to demonstrate this until your ears bleed, but here are just a few examples. Surah 26, surely it is indeed ascending down from the Lord of the worlds, surely it is indeed in the scriptures of those of old. And Surah 5, we've sent down a book with truth confirming what was with him of the book, and as a preserver of it. Notice especially Surah 37, when it was said to them, there is no God but God, they became arrogant and said, are we to abandon our gods for a possessed poet? No, he has brought the truth and confirmed the messengers. Notice that the basis for the Quran's authority, confirming the messengers, has been completely abandoned today by Muslim apologists, although the Jewish and Christian scriptures are now as they were in the 7th century and many centuries before. But of course, Muslims can no longer claim that the Quran agrees with the books of the Jews and Christians. Therefore, this proof of the Quran's divine origin has been discarded in favor of the self-attesting miraculous nature of the Quran. But some of you will know that there are a couple of verses which portray belief as a result of hearing the Quran recited. Remember when we turned a band of jinn to you to listen to the Quran. When they were in its presence, they said, be silent. And when it was finished, they turned back to their people as warners. They said, our people, surely we have heard a book which has been sent down after Moses, confirming what was before it, guiding to the truth and to a straight road. And from Surah 72 say, I am inspired that a band of jinn listened, and they said, surely we have heard an amazing Quran. It guides to the right course. We believe in it, and we shall not associate anyone with our Lord. But note that in the first case, what compelled belief was that the Quran confirmed what came before it, as we've noted before. This motif is a frequent claim of the Quran's authenticity. In Surah 72, several verses describe the speech of jinn. Again, the first part of the verse, say, I am inspired that a band of jinn listened, and they said. And this quote continues for several verses. This verse does not say that the jinn heard the Quran from the Quran's messenger. Muslim commentators simply assume this based on the parallel in Surah 46. But in Surah 46, again, the proof of the Quran's authenticity is that it confirms what was sent before it. Second, this claim is completely unfalsifiable. Anyone can say that they were inspired with knowledge of something that happened in the supernatural realm. However, viewers may conclude that such claims require more credibility than the Quran's author deserves to warrant belief. Third, Surah 72 contains lengthy quotes from the jinn. Citations in the Quran such as these exclude them from being miraculous in their literary quality, since the miraculous revelation of Allah would need to be distinguishable from the speech of jinn or any other created being. Ironically then, this single passage, which affirms the amazing Quran, cannot itself be a literary miracle and is not, therefore, self-attesting. But can't we compare it to pre-Islamic poetry to see the miraculous nature of the Quran? Absolutely.
Go look at the 7 poems, the Mu'allaqat al-Sab'a. Go look at pre-Islamic poetry. Go look at all types of what is called nathr and rhythm and rhyme of pre-Islam and post-Islam.
Actually, no, we can't. Dr. Ayman Ibrahim comments, while Muslims tend to defend the beauty of the Arabic Quran by mentioning pre-Islamic poetry as evidence, there is no evidence of the acclaimed pre-Islamic poetry. Not even a single line remains. All we know about pre-Islamic poetry comes from the Muslim sources, written centuries after Muhammad, that tell us there was magnificent poetry before Islam. The fact that these Muslim sources cite poems and state they were from pre-Islamic Arabs does not prove the poem's origins. It is possible that the writers of these sources, in an attempt to elevate the Quran and its language, forged some poetry and labeled it pre-Islamic in order to claim superiority. Even the renowned Muslim thinker Taha Hussein postulated that the so-called pre-Islamic poetry was forgery and not pre-Islamic. He claimed that this poetry was forged by Muslims themselves to authenticate Quranic assertions and establish credibility. Ibrahim continues, and this is worth quoting at length. Notice that Surah 72, which we talked about earlier, is also mentioned. In fact, many scholars argue that the language of the Quran is imperfect. The Quran underwent interpolation that complicated the flow of the text. At times, the text appears to be made up of unrelated passages, not to mention the various places where it needs emendations due to scribal errors. Not only non-Muslim scholars and thinkers, but also some modern Arab Muslims view the Quran's language as flawed. Some even doubt certain chapters of the Quran, calling them inauthentic revelations. For example, the Iraqi Muslim intellectual Ahmad Hassan al-Kubanji calls for a version of Islam that makes sense, supports human rights, and improves the morality of humankind. He dismisses any so-called Islamic teachings or concepts, even passages from the Quran, that contradict these values. In his examination of Surah 55, he argues that the chapter is ineloquent and full of contradictions. He claims that the chapter insults Allah's intellect, as it is full of literary mistakes and linguistic errors, and lacks any logical sequence. As he sees it, when Muslims claim that this chapter is divinely inspired, they are not doing Islam any favors. Khalil Abd al-Karim, an Egyptian Muslim lawyer, made the case that some Quranic verses were included merely to meet the personal needs and lustful desires of Muhammad and his companions. He makes a good point. The above-mentioned Hussein argued that the language of the Quran is difficult to follow and questioned the validity and truthfulness of some chapters, especially Surah 72, which of course we discussed earlier. And now let's summarize. The original audience who heard the Quran recited right from Muhammad dismissed it as old legends. The Quran does not report people being amazed with its literary quality. The original audience thought the Quran's reciter had a human teacher, not divine. The Quran also affirms that many will not believe even after hearing the Quran. It is therefore unconvinced of its own miraculousness. The Quran frequently bases its authority and proof not on a literary miracle, but on its confirmation of prior scriptures of the Jews and Christians, which it doesn't actually confirm, ironically. A single claim to the amazing Quran, the jinn in Surah 72, is impossible to prove, vague, and cannot be self-attesting in its literary quality. Some Muslim scholars have raised similar questions to the ones in this video, including with Surah 72 specifically. Returning now to our three propositions, if we are to take the Quran as accurate, per number 3, then number 1, the compelling power of the Quran's recitation, is not defensible from the Quran itself. The Quran's hearers call it, repeatedly, old legends. This is in spite of number 2, that Muhammad was the best reciter ever. All of this raises a question, or two, or three. If contemporaries of Muhammad weren't convinced hearing him, how could Muslims expect us to be when they recite the Quran? Number 2, does the miraculous Quran sound like a later development by Muslim apologists, or does it sound like something attested to by the Quran itself? And number 3, why have Muslims dropped the Quran's own claims for authenticity, that it confirms what came before? It's hard to know where to stop. For example, if we were to look at a historical argument, the Quran's dozens upon dozens of variant readings were not sifted through according to their miraculous quality. They were judged on the basis of grammar, vocabulary, and popularity. This is painstaking work, and apparently some of these major scholars in the formative period of the Qurans really had no clue what they were doing. They should have just listened to the cornucopia of variant recitations and let their miraculous quality speak for itself. Unless, of course, all of that wasn't actually a thing until much later. A final note, the challenge verses of the Quran apparently didn't mean much to the original audience either. Why try to produce something that sounds just like old legends you've heard before? What a waste of time. As Surah 831 says, when our signs are recited to them, they say, we have already heard this. If we wished, we could indeed say something like this. This is nothing but old tales. You're also welcome to check out this video for more on the challenge versus different opinions on what the challenge actually means and why the challenge itself is incoherent. One final note. This video was so good that I was inspired with knowledge. There was a group of jinn who listened to it and were so convinced by the literary quality of the script that they left Islam. Don't believe me? Try to prove me wrong. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.